Clint Eastwood, veteran actor and celebrated director, has had his fair share of successes over his 8-decade-long career. However, not every film can be a hit. Rotten Tomatoes has compiled a list of Eastwood's flops, both in front of and behind the camera. Despite the duds, Eastwood still has 4 Academy Awards to his name, including 2 for Best Director. The 1988 film, The Dead Pool, part of the Dirty Harry series, has received a critic score of just 57%. Some reviewers have called it a lame yarn, but others argue that the constant shootouts were the point of the film. The 1997 film Absolute Power has an impressive cast with Gene Hackman, Ed Harris, and Laura Linney. However, despite Clint Eastwood's directing, the ridiculous plot cannot be overlooked. The Washington Post criticized the slow pace, making the plot holes and implausibilities even more noticeable. The movie has a critic score of 56%. In Blood Work, Clint Eastwood directs and stars in a mystery/thriller with a far-fetched plot twist. Critics gave it a 52% rating, but Variety said it was improved by Eastwood's involvement. However, the film didn't impress audiences, only making $26 million at the box office, less than half its budget. The film Jersey Boys, 2014, only scored a 51% on the critic meter. The director failed to capture the essence of the Broadway musical and instead focused on the gritty behind-the-scenes business. The Atlantic labeled it as scattered, haphazard, and unsure of whether it wanted to be a cutesy musical or a serious crime narrative. Critics were divided on Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. The film, based on John Barron's best-selling book, had a star-studded cast and showcased Savannah, Georgia's beauty. However, some believe that Clint Eastwood's direction missed the mark. Newsweek's David Anson said, "He approaches the story like a tourist." Leonardo DiCaprio stars in J. Edgar, directed by Clint Eastwood, retelling the story of the infamous FBI boss J. Edgar Hoover. The film takes a cautious approach to Hoover's controversial legacy, resulting in a mixed reception from critics, with a score of only 43%. The UK's Daily Telegraph described it as 1 part Charles Foster Kane to 3 parts Elmer Fudd. In Every Which Way But Loose, 1978, Clint Eastwood plays a bare-knuckle fighter who faces off against a motorcycle gang with his pet orangutan. Critics gave it a 39% score, calling it slack and harebrained. The 1982 movie Firefox, directed by and starring Clint Eastwood, was a major disappointment. Critics gave it a score of only 38%, calling it drawn out and lacking in drama and action. The Russians are portrayed as the Three Stooges, and Eastwood himself is compared to an automated totem pole. In The Rookie, Clint Eastwood directs and stars as a cop stuck with a young partner played by Charlie Sheen. Critics weren't impressed, calling it overlong, sadistic, and stale. The film has a low critic score of only 29%. Paint Your Wagon, 1969, a musical film starring Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin, receives a low critic score of 27%. While successful on Broadway, critics found the film version to be a long ordeal, according to Roger Ebert. In the movie The 1517 to Paris, director Eastwood cast the real-life heroes who stopped a terrorist attack in 2015. However, critics are unimpressed with a 23% score, saying it doesn't feel real and lacks fulfillment. City Heat, a buddy movie starring Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood, receives a low 22% score by critics. Despite their box office success in the 80s, this film was described as a lukewarm confection and a travesty by reviewers. In 1980's Any Which Way You Can, Ruth Gordon and an orangutan steal the show in this less-than-stellar sequel. Though one critic called it not very good, it still manages to earn a grudging affection. In Pink Cadillac, 1989, an action comedy film, a bounty hunter pursues a bail jumper before developing feelings for her. Rolling Stone rated it a 20%, describing it as an unoriginal and tedious movie made from recycled material. 1955's Revenge of the Creature, starring Clint Eastwood, received a low critic score of 13%. This forgotten film was one of Eastwood's early roles before his breakout success. This sequel to Creature from the Black Lagoon was called a routine shocker that didn't benefit much from 3D. Cheapism has released interesting articles for their audience, such as celebs who blew their money on stupid things, the cost of a beer and a hot dog at every MLB ballpark, and more. If you like their content, make sure to follow them.